Hello, everybody, and welcome. We are building the Africa we deserve. We're now having a conversation today with some star studded, stellar individuals who have agreed to come talk about how we're building the Africa that we deserve post the U.S. Africa Leaders Summit. The International Institute of Family Development is hosting this conversation today with individuals who were both attendees and who were event organizers. The topic of this conversation is the work begins, walking the talk, action commitments post U.S. Africa Leaders Summit. Today's guests will be sharing their own personal reflections on achievements, accomplishments, and the opportunities that we have before us in order to make this real, right? There were so many commitments that happened. So many people flew from all across the world. I had the chance personally to represent the International Institute, to be there, to see people, to engage, to hear from presidents directly themselves, inviting the diaspora home. And I want to be really clear, that's all of us who are abroad, those in the sixth region, those who are directly connected by birth, and those who are gently removed by a few generations of Black Americans, Afro-Latinos, Caribbean people, etc., to come back to the continent, to engage, to invest in agriculture, in manufacturing and production. Africa is a global powerhouse. And if you do not have a company or business operating in Africa in the next 5 years, my friends, I'm telling you, you're missing out on an opportunity of a lifetime, not just a market, but a people, a culture, a way of life, of being, and an opportunity to make impact, right? Make impact on growth, make impact on your return of your investment, but also just to see the development, to have legacy, to help create wealth, attainment, acceleration, and economic well-being. And that is what this is all about, right? Creating the Africa that we deserve. We have a campaign that we are running to create 1 million jobs on the continent by 2030, and the Biden-Harris event. And we thank the administration for organizing, for leading, for spearheading this conversation on mutual relationship, mutual understanding. We can do that. And so we're going to bring to the stage here, we have Khadija Kamara, who is coming with us. We have Dr. Daniel, who will be joining us, Allison Johnson, who will be here, and Abraham Diallo. So I'm going to bring these folks to this conversation. They're going to take some time to share their thoughts, who they are, what they contributed to the events. So please, Allison, share who you are, what you do, and how you are at the event.
So a very good morning to everyone, and thank you to the International Institute and to yourself, Ms. Green, for inviting all of us to be here and do a real after-action report on the USA Africa Leaders Summit 2022. My name is Allison Johnson. I'm here in Washington, D.C., and I have been involved in Africa for almost 35 years in international development, international business, and commerce. I am very proud of the efforts of President Biden and Vice President Harris to spearhead another Africa USA Leaders Summit to remind us of the work across 55 countries on the African continent that is pure potential for growth, development, and transformation for the over 1 billion residents of the continent, along with all of us in the diaspora, as you have said, across all the continents on the world stage. So I would like to first introduce myself. I represent both my own company, Metamorphosis Global Advisory, now in business for over 11 years, representing small and medium-sized companies across the Washington, D.C. area, particularly opening up emerging markets, as well as 2414 Morgan Development International, that is based here as well as across the continent to work on that initiative, like the International Institute, of bringing opportunities for more jobs, development, and prosperity for all 55 countries across the continent. I'm really excited about this dialogue because at this point, it is about action and follow up. There was a tremendous pledge from President Biden to look at the opportunity for reparations, now at $55 billion from the USA federal government. And that money really needs to be a stepping stone and a platform for all of the world community to come forward to provide the resources and the capital to bring to action projects and programs in every economy of the 55 countries so that there's more growth, job opportunities, development, and prosperity for the over 1 billion people on the continent. I think it's also an opportunity for the other former colonial powers of Europe to come forward with more capital for reparations so that that capital can be that platform to create more small businesses, more medium-sized companies that can employ more people across all of the sectors that are needed for growth. So I think that the summit was a great dialogue. It was a good beginning. And I think that the hundreds and thousands of people like myself that participated both in the Washington, D.C. Convention Center, as well as across the side events around the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, all of December, really began the work in the trenches of getting deals done and getting the commitments and promises that need to be followed through on. And I think most importantly, there needs to be more of an acknowledgement that the governments in each of the African countries have a responsibility to organize the programs and the projects in country so that these funds can be used and resourced and utilized effectively, because that's always the missing piece. Pledges are always made in these conferences and summits and have been for decades, but it's when you're on the ground in the countries, having that ability to organize the right projects for people to be employed and engaged and to use those funds wisely without corruption, without nepotism, and without any bribery or any kind of other nefarious activities that has all of that money lost and stolen also needs to be supervised. So there's a tremendous obligation and responsibility from the governments to be held accountable with transparency for the objectives to be really accomplished and achieved after the summit. So those are just some opening remarks I want to make in introducing the work and the follow-up from the summit. Thank you again, Ms. Green, for this opportunity to be here and to discuss further what else we can do to make these summits effective in their follow-up. Thank you so much.
Allison, thank you for being here. You laid out and opened the floor in this discussion very, very well. Couldn't ask for anything more. And I will shout out as we're moving on to other people, is that there are a few relationships that the International Institute has with a few African countries that are looking for people to come back. And this would be the right time to do that, to work through Allison's organization, to work through the International Institute, for us to partner together jointly to go forward and bring opportunities to the continent. I was active by invitation of Ambassador Samba Cham at the Mauritania Investment Commission event, and it was fabulous. Other events I will shout out as we go through and have this conversation, but there are African countries ready to realize the dream of their national development plans, and this is the right opportunity, and you all are the right people to make that happen. Um, Mr. Diallo, come on to the floor and tell us who you are, what you do, and what was your role at the event? What events did you attend or help to organize?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Abraham Diallo. I'm here situated in Washington, D.C. Thank you so much, Miss Green, for having us. It's really an honor, stepping stone for kind of the work that I would want to do. So I'm here in D.C. working at the District Department of Transportation. We um, we were the nation's capital agency arm for all things transportation in the district. I am a first generation American. My mother is from Senegal. Um, my father's from Guinea, so our roots started in Guinea. So we're both francophone countries. And, I just wanted to kind of use this opportunity. For a while now, actually, I've always wanted to do work in Africa. In the next phases of my career, I graduated college about 2 years ago. Had the opportunity to study abroad in London, where I really kind of crystallized the work of economic development and infrastructure in Africa. I went to school for urban planning, and for me, Africa has been said by numerous institutes and officials and businesses as the next frontier of human development. There's so much potential in Africa that Africans themselves don't even realize. Like the devices we're speaking on are made from lithium and cobalt that have a valuation of
So I always bring people to this opportunity. You're back, Abraham, but
sorry.
I always like to bring people to this when technology happens. When I'm on the continent, no matter where I'm at on the continent,
Mhm.
people are like, America's the greatest. It is, right? I'm born here, great nation, but there's technological challenges. It's just not on the continent, right? So
Yes.
all of the stuff that we hope and we're saying, get 5G in, get 3G, better this, better that, hiccups happen, and that's in a very developed nation that happens as well. So I want all of our listening audience to know, those who are in the continent and and abroad, that stuff happens. So bear with us just as we bear with you, right? We are flowing and we are one people. Finish your comments, and definitely talk about the event that you went to.
Okay, yes. Apologies for that. So yeah, so as amongst the lithium and cobalt that's have a valuation of over 21 trillion, which is a lot more than some, developed nations' economies. That's the value of these minerals that are being extracted out of Africa to develop the economies of other developed nations that Africans themselves aren't realizing. So things like that kind of circulate my mind and kind of want me to kind of go back there. I actually recently went back home to visit my grandparents and relatives, and I was just like, I had some Western kind of creature comforts I was used to, that I was like, oh my goodness, like why is this route so circuitous just to get from one end to this end of the country? And it made me realize the infrastructure is not there. And when the infrastructure is there, like roads and grid systems, it kind of allows for more efficient movement. Transportation, as an urban planner, transportation is what will help bring up an economy from the down under. So if you can have transportation systems that have people produce the goods, agriculture to transport to the ports to deliver and participate in the world markets. That will, things like that allow for economies to grow, and then, be able to tax and support those people through various social structures that we have here in this country. So as a as a member of the diaspora, these are privileges that we have that we should be able to kind of collaborate with those nations and kind of bring up. The event I went to was the Progress for American Center. It was brought to my attention by Alexandria, who is the president of the BPIA, the Black Professionals International Affairs. So for me, going to an event like that allows me to network and really help develop a pathway to the things I want to do. I made connections that I'm going to follow through on to kind of take my career to the next step, because working in Africa is, I just have a strong connection. Even when I went back home, I was able to secure my second passport as a Senegalese citizen. So I'm Senegalese American, and I plan to embark on that journey to really help realize the potential. That's why I went into this field of urban planning. I moved from one part of the district to another where we didn't have good transport system, food desert, stuff like that. Watching my immigrant parents who didn't really speak English kind of navigate the world, and, having to see that struggle was like, okay, that's not what I want for other people. So it's a very personal endeavor for me to go into this field. So thank you all. Thank you, Miss Green, and I can't wait to participate in this conversation further.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for coming on. I truly, truly, you are a gem being here. When you talk about transportation, I remember being in Ghana, and I was on a trotro. And there's nothing like being this little small little thing. And I'm not small at all. I'm over 6 feet tall. I'm a woman of size. And so transportation is really huge. In addition to transportation of our goods and products, right? So I noticed so much post-harvest loss, right? I was there. I brought, people with me, and we would watch, the tomatoes or the food just completely, there was no place for storage of that. And there was no cold storage in trucks in order to move the food or the stuff forward. So your work is highly important. Alexandria couldn't be with us today. She got called into a meeting, very high level meeting. So she sends her regards, but is in full support of us continuing. But we do have a person who was filling in for Alexandria, Khadija Kamara. Could please come forward and talk about who you are, what you do, and what events did you participate in during the African Leader Summit?
Yes, thank you so much, Ms. Green. Good morning to the audience. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. Thank you to my fellow panelists. I'm so happy to be here this morning. My name is Khadija Kamara. I'm a proud Sierra Leonean, and I'm an African woman. A little bit more about me. I'm a public health practitioner. So I've implemented projects ranging from women's health to flood mitigation, and I've designed and implemented these programs, and also have been able to gain funding for these programs and really enact change at the local level. So that's something that I'm interested in, sustaining change, having community-based change in partnership with community stakeholders. I've primarily done work in some communities, but I've also worked with businesses of late, really small businesses in Sierra Leone, in a program called SLEDEP, Sierra Leone Economic Diversification Program. So I've been able to provide guidance to small entrepreneurs in terms of building their businesses, growing their businesses, defining strategies, things of that nature. So that's a little bit about me in terms of public relations, public health. I'm also a consultant, a healthcare consultant. So I'm all into strategy. In terms of, the event of the past week, this wonderful summit that the Biden-Harris administration has put on, I was invited by the White House and the Department of State to the African and Young Leaders Forum, Young Leaders Forum, which was amazing, right? To be a part of such a room of change makers, people that think how I think, see the potential in Africa. Africa is the past, it's the present, but it's the future, as Mr. Diallo alluded to. So it was really nice to see that amongst people in the room, speakers that were enlightening us, and just being amongst colleagues that I can tell are just going to take this world by storm and really fight to bring Africa to the main stage and realize Africa's potential. So it was a really wonderful event. I'm really happy to see, the commitment that was put out there. Again, as Miss Allison alluded to, we need a plan. It's great to have money, 55 billion, wonderful. But what is that plan? What is that strategy?
Right.
And that's why I'm so happy to have organizations such as the International Institute that can just be those rock stars that are like, hey, I'm going to be on the ground. I'm going to go to Sierra Leone. I'm going to go to Botswana. I'm going to go wherever we have to go to get it done. So that's really the next stage, right? What's next is, what are we going to do on the ground to really get it done? So I'm really happy that, the International Institute had the thoughtfulness of putting this forum out there, right? Like, what are we going to do? Let's come together. Let's bring these great minds together, regroup and say, hey, let's move forward, but let's move forward together. So thank you so much once again for this wonderful event. I'm really excited to get into this conversation.
Thank you so very much. And your First Lady of Sierra Leone, I just adore her. I was with her in New York a few months back and had the opportunity to take some photos with her, and your foreign minister, Minister of Finance, and then again here in DC during the Africa Leader Summit, the private event of all First Ladies. And to be in the room with the First Lady of the Gambia, Sierra Leone, Angola, and be able just to be in that presence of queens, right? So they're called by many things, Kandanka, Candaces, etc. But the power exudes in that room. And I think that this is where the work can live, right? Both youth and mothers. People like to say women, but I also like to say mothers, because there's a certain energy that comes with making sure they're thinking for the now, but they're also, as in your point, thinking for the future. So I want to bring our good brother, up for conversation. Dr. Daniel, come forward and talk about who you are and the events that you help to organize and attend.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, the International Institute for Family Development, for bringing the smart audience together. And thank you for also creating this intergenerational platform, because that's what we need. We need the wisdom of those that have come before us. And when we need the vitality and the innovative and creative capacity thinking, on the spot for younger people on board, that's the only way we can move forward. That said, my name is Buji Daniel Chudebe. I'm from Nigeria. I'm an African immigrant here. I came over here on scholarship. I also have a non-for-profit based organization. I'm a global health consultant recently, and I have an NGO that focuses on environmental issue. 9 weeks ago, I got an email, that there's going to be like an African summit, and that have been discussions even before now for more than a year. I was like, what? And that these are some of the thematic points. And I was like, I'm not so, do you think I'm ready for this now? And they said, we've seen your work and we think you're good. Just tell us your thoughts. And I think that was the Dana Banks, some of the aides in the White House. And they gave me some documents and I looked at it. I said, oh my God, this is good. This is a perfect pitching good. Will African leaders that I know, will they really be able to conceptualize the technical part? And that's where Miss Allison is right. That what she's saying is that there are technical things that needs to be done. This is not wishful thinking. There are some technical things that needs to be done for you to activate growth, transparency, equity, inclusiveness, you understand, sincerity, staying the course, political commitment, being open, doing the needs assessment of what your people want. Some people may not want the road. They just want their kids to remain around the environment. But for your kids to remain, you need to incentivize, right? So I saw some documents they gave to me. I was like, okay, I can write some things. This is wrong. This won't work. I'm a Nigerian. This is not going to work. This isn't going to work. The key thing is work with Africa. Don't let Africans see you as an extension of colonialism. And that's the same thing happening with some new world powers trying to give us loan to enslave us, and African leaders not looking through the loans, not being transparent. So I wrote a letter, a 10-page letter to Mr. President 8 weeks ago. I was not expecting a reply. He did reply, And part of what was inside the letter were there's need for us now to have a special trade agreement with young people. You said it yourself that young people in Africa are 67.8% of the population, 600 million people. By 2050, they will be 75% of the population. So it's a ticking time bomb, not giving young people something to do. And then the sad narrative is that the smartest people are the ones leaving the country. And when you remove all the smartest people, who are you leaving behind? You're leaving behind a lot of crisis. They can be used wrongly. Whoever is left behind can be used wrong. No disrespect that there are no smart people, but they're also waiting to leave. And the best way we can help them is to tell them that, okay, let us create what you want. What do you want? How can we gather this fundings, the grants, and how can we use it to address your issues? And those are what I put in the letters to Mr. President. We need young people, young African entrepreneurs, both those of us here and those back home, to be on those special committees being set and being head by Ambassador Johnny Carson now. We also need a standing policy for young people. So if we have young Africans entrepreneurs that have band themselves together like a cooperative, which we are working on, and can fit and meet the eligibility to enter the US space, give us a covering letter. We will comply with whatever you want to do. We'll organize ourselves properly. We'll fit into what you want to do, and then give us that trading backing. Once the federal government in Nigeria or any government in Africa knows that there's State Department blessing on this cooperative, nobody's going to think, they're not dumb. They will not want to do anything, to such business. Another thing we want is technology itself. Technology itself needs to link everything together. We want a situation where the tomato seller in Nigeria, in Ikeja, will tell her that, see, ma, it's okay selling to this locality. Do you know you can sell to people outside your locality? But you need internet, right? Do you know you can sell to Benin Republic and Gambia? All you need is a platform to say, this is what I can supply. 20 tons of tomato. My farm can do that. Pay on our platform. The platform needs to be protected, needs to be secured. You understand? There needs to be credibility on it, and we could do, because the truth of the matter is that she believing that all she needs to do is sell within that locality, and she's able to have money and is able to have stuff. It's not true, because you're selling to the same poor people in the same condition like you. So unless you diversify, you expand your quantum, you bring in more stakeholders, more audiences into the system, you will not be able to get meet margin. So those are some of the recommendations that I put in there. And then that the president should have a scorecard for all our African leaders. The truth of the matter is that young people on the continent of Africa, we know where our problems are. Our problems are our leaders, we know. But we also know that we too are our own problems. It's not enough for you to point at them. These four fingers are pointing back at you. What are we doing? We are the ones electing them. And now we have a critical mass of our young women. We as young people can reach out to our mothers and say, see, these people will not change. They've shown us for 58 years. Look at where Africa is still. Yes, we don't have plans for COVID. We don't have plans for anything. We're always asking for loans, and then every year there's a budget always being released in billions. In short, they have budget to buy weapons to kill their own people. So these are things that need to change. So young people, rather than sit down on Facebook and get upset, organize ourselves together, enter the political process, because that's the only reasonable way to make things work. So those are some of my recommendations. And the president wrote back, they invited me. I did also organize a press conference immediately after the 13th with other African leaders. Shout out to Mary Apollo from South Sudan. She's our leader for Young African Professional Network. There are a lot of coalitions, a lot of events. We did a press conference. The president also wrote back to her, thanking them. And then some of the letters the president sent to me are on my social media platform for people to see. The point to be made is this. I was impressed that the president of the country, US President Biden, was able to, reply. That's what no African leader would ever do. You see, an African leader or a leader per se is someone that is very responsive. You must respond to the yearnings of your people. Unless people are deceiving you, we know Africa has a problem. So no African leader should be telling you or should be telling the world that all is well. That's a lie. You understand? It's a big one, And then the issue now is, are you responding to what your people are doing now? COVID, yes, was not caused by you, but if you had done all you need to do before COVID had come, if you have built and strengthened health institutions, even at the basic level, not the secondary level, not the tertiary level, the basic level, we would have averted a lot of things that are going on. So what I feel the summit did for us is tell African leaders the game is up. You have the choice you need to make now: quality, inclusivity, openness, democratic norms, addressing real issue, recovering fully well from this pandemic, or you want to go to the other third world country or emerging economies who want to give you loans where people don't even know the terms of the loans. How can you take loan from a country and they tell you, please do not give the details of the content of the loan to your people? Who does that? So America did something excellent before the very eyes, a pitching narrative that it's always better to go after quality because in the long run, it's cost effective than to go after fakes. And that Africa more than ever before has the capacity. Africa more than ever before should start doing something seriously because of the young people. Your continent is the youngest. The average age is 19. It's not looking like it's going to decrease in a long time. And if you don't do anything now, it's going to be bad. So we organized, I and my team, and lots of African people organized a press conference. We reinstated what we wanted to do. We're part of also another breakout session, the educational session, where LinkedIn head of economics and global markets was involved. The Sierra Leone Minister for Education, who I met during the UN General Assembly that just finished last year, September, or this September, sorry. We're trying to restructure the educational system to include long learning experience, lifelong learning experience with academic experience, infusing them together. The point to be made, and the point for our audience, especially young people in Africa, is the time of dancing is over. No disrespect to Davido, Burna Boy, Sheriff of Ghana, and all those stuff. They're just a negligible percentage of the billions of Africans who may not be able to sing, who may not be able to have that opportunity. And we have the critical mass now to make things work. Agriculture, food security, our own physical security, very important. Technology, very important. Transportation, like Brother Abraham has said, is very key. You can have your services, you can have your products. If you do not have the capacity to get it to other destinations that may actually need it, that prosperity will be stifled. And these are what are contained in the thematic points that Mr. President has laid out. And also shout out to the State Department. They've been very helpful. Press officer for the U.S. State Department for African Bureau, Matty Whitney, thank you so much. Honorable Dennis, who is currently with the NSA but attached with the White House, thank you so much for your wisdom. Marvin Footy, many of you know Marvin Footy, Constituency for Africa. He's been working on it. If you don't know him, he was mentor to YALI, the Young Africa Leadership Initiative. Shout out to him because I shared some of those drafts with him. And to all our Africans here, the truth of the matter is that nobody's going to build a better world for you. You need to start to engage yourself in the system, start taking political leadership from councillor, from governor, from provincial head. That's the only way to move forward. Thank you.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much. And I just want Burna Boy, my husband, who he doesn't know that he's my husband, but he's my husband in my mind, that it's okay. We're going to fix the world together. Just send me some concert tickets. It's just fine. I had the chance to, I'm setting up for the next question. I had the chance to have an invitation by the United States Institute of Peace to attend and be present with Ambassador Johnny Carson and President Buhari of Nigeria to hear directly some of the improvements and the challenges. And what I will say that I've heard from a lot of the presidents across the continent that I've had the chance to engage with, from the summit that was put together by the State Department. Again, shout out to Dana Banks, Exim Bank, all of the members who are doing yeoman's work, was that it is a lot, right? It is a lot to do, and everybody is needed. And the number one thing is to turn Africa around to be a global powerhouse is to have the manufacturing and production in continent for jobs. One of the ways that, the next question is what are some ways that the diaspora at large can get involved? And I'm going to share a challenge that the International Institute has, and perhaps we can figure it out together as we explore this conversation. We have a relationship with a manufacturing firm that produces solar panels, and it's been a challenge to enter the African market for distribution, but also more importantly, this company was looking to establish a manufacturing facility. And to be able to enter, the International Institute has, gone around to several individuals, and they will remain nameless. But that's a challenge. We're trying to figure that out because that's going to bring a huge amount of jobs into the continent. And finding the right country who is serious to engage in a PPP is the thing that is necessary. Most people are like, oh, you'll never get a PPP, which is a public-private partnership. We're not looking for a BOT, build, own, transfer, or any of that. I think that's one. The second thing for diaspora, for the work that we're helping to drive pathways, is that we have the International Institute organized 300 businesses, diaspora and in-continent, small and medium businesses in coalition that have signed on, and we have letters of mandates for to help them find funding, small funding from 100,000 to 5 million. One company I want to definitely shout out is in South Africa, a Black woman-owned South African who is manufacturing cement. We need funding for her. We have tons of stories like that. And we also, the International Institute is also in relationship with several large cap funders who fund from 20 million to 500 million government projects. And so this is what we have on the table when we're looking at the ways that the diaspora can come together and provide opportunity. And so the International Institute is trying to do its part. This conference, this summit that we just attended, for us was a door opener, a road, opened. And we're looking for those of you around this table and on this screen and in the listening audience, for us to join together to make this real. The opportunity is now. We are the people to do it, not to wait, because when we wait, stuff happens, and that stuff turns into people who are being hurt, more young people on the back roads, losing their life by sea, more children who grow up hopeless. And when you grow up hopeless, you become heartless over time. And that is not something that our people are known for. We are people who are innovative, who set the course of mankind. And we have the opportunity to partner together with the United States with this full force. And we want to help the Biden-Harris administration make that possible. So I'm going to put this question out, and we're just going to go back. Allison, for you to start off, what are some ways, in your opinion, that the diaspora, specifically diaspora of the 6th region, can partner more closely with countries to establish manufacturing and production that enhances Africa as a whole and its rebirth as a vital international partner?
Thank you so much for the question. And it is critical that the partnerships, the public-private partnerships, as well as other strategic alliances that we can form from North America and our small and medium-sized businesses here, be based on technical transfer, technical assistance, knowledge transfer, the empowerment of the populations that we'll be working with in country. And I think one of the things that we have to start with that I kicked off in the beginning, we're looking at 55 countries. It's in a massive amount of territory. As you know, the North American continent can fit into Africa 3 times. So it's a tremendous amount of land. It has over 1 billion human beings. So you have to target. You have to be specific on what communities you would like to impact in particular. And so I think the model that many countries are beginning to embrace is one that we're doing here in our North American territories of economic development corporations, in which our counties, like the Prince George's County here in Maryland, or other counties across this country, they look at their economic development corporations or councils as ways in which the matchmaking can take place between interested parties so that the manufacturing needs, for instance, can be met by looking for ways to introduce the right critical businesses to be introduced into the marketplace that can provide the technical transfer and the technical assistance. And I think we have to add that once we narrow which countries the entity would like to focus on, for instance, the example of the cement female-owned entrepreneur in South Africa, you want to look at also the political, economic, and social development challenges because there are a number of barriers that take place because of lack of transparency or lack of good governance or lack of rule of law that make capital infusion challenging. So focusing on countries where you know there's going to be an openness and an availability to welcome that partnership coming from the North American interests. So I think that for those in the audience that are businesses, entrepreneurs, interested parties that want to take advantage of this high potential, looking at markets where there are established economic development councils, corporations, or initiatives that allow that matchmaking to take place. There's also a tremendous amount of work being done through the USA Chamber of Commerce or local chambers of commerce in country, whether you're doing it on a regional basis or you're doing it nation by nation. Those chambers of commerce can also be a platform because basically you're looking for a means by which that matchmaking can take place. There's a number of fallout trade missions that are going to occur through the USA Department of Commerce and the Minority Business Development Agency that will spearhead more and more North American businesses looking at opportunities to go into the countries where there will be follow-up from the summit and looking to create those partnerships.
Right.
So finding those trade missions and becoming a part of them can also be a gateway. And the county governments and the state governments are also going to be doing those trade missions and finding those platforms. And I think one of the things that we need to definitely acknowledge is that there needs to be the kind of partnership on the country basis where you have the right relationships in place.
Sure.
Another means to do that is you saw that the Corporate Council on Africa was very strongly represented with their U.S. Africa Business Summit taking place at the same time as our USA Africa Leaders Summit. And they also are going to be another platform by which interested parties can come together for follow-up country by country. They also have a 55 country basis approach with their work across the continent to have specific follow-up with trade missions and matchmaking and being able to really facilitate trade and investment for manufacturing and other interests. So I think in general, we really have to narrow down where the interested activities can be and focus on that. and really hone in on that and have, a 2 to 4 year action plan to be able to bring deals to the table and to fruition. Because it's a long-term process, it's a long-term commitment, and being able to stay the course until the results are rendered really is the hardest challenge. So I think with the International Institute for Family Development taking lead on your work and bringing the 1 million jobs to the continent, focusing on agribusiness, bringing together these parties, having these discussions regularly every quarter, continuing the dialogue, that is going to be critical. So I look forward to working with you specifically on some of the deals you just brought, because these are things that if we work together, we can find interested manufacturing parties for both the cement manufacturer in South Africa, the solar panel development. I would end by sharing there is a friend and a colleague who has started a company based first in Accra, Ghana, called Solar Energy City. She has expanded to Sierra Leone, and she is installing solar panels for energy and electricity generation in Ghana and Sierra Leone. And so she could be the first person to help establish the manufacturing of solar panels on the continent, as she's currently sourcing them from all over the world for her solar panel installation in West Africa. So that's a perfect
Yes.
example of immediate follow-up. So lots of opportunity. Happy to continue the dialogue. Thank you for the question.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think that's so important because we often hear is bring the investor and they take all the risk and make sure that they have proof of funds and they pay for everything. And that doesn't become a real partnership. That doesn't allow for growth and development, as you're talking about, Allison. You really laid that out for us. And this work will continue. This is not just a talk session. We are organized together. We are in community, in chat on WhatsApp app. We will continue to grow that and build out from there. The floor is open for one more comment on this. We have some more questions we want to get to, but the question on the table is: what are some ways that the diaspora at large, particularly the sixth region, can partner together and work more closely to establish manufacturing and production? Anyone have some thoughts that they want to share to add to what
Yes,
Allison said?
yes, Miss Green. Let me first thank Miss Allison, because what she has said is a technical textbook pathway for sustainable development. Be intentional, be strategic, cone down to the peculiarity of your region, try and get a broader base of people who already have ideas in it, bring those ideas that have global perspective and localize them, and ensure as much as possible you are transparent to the best of your ability. Textbook definition of what the United Nations define as the pathway for progress. Don't leave anyone behind. Ensure you meet the current need of this generation, but try and leave something behind for those that are not born. Don't give them a bad hand. For diaspora, the truth of the matter, and that's what Mrs. Allison is saying, the truth of the matter is that diasporans are the only ones that will be able to give that extra technical expertise, that global perspective to the African continent. The only thing that I want to correct in some of the things and the nuances is the African continent does have capacity. But you see, capacity alone that is not expandable, capacity alone that does not factor globalization, the adaptive capacity of globalization that does not factor technology is nothing. So that's why you see when Africans leave the continent and then they come to the US, they become like mega stars. No, it has always been there. It's just that they needed the globalization, the equipment, the precision equipments, the well-defined certifications to really expand. So for diaspora, we need to organize ourselves. This era of Ghana, Nigeria, and all those things, we may need to break it down for now. That does not mean you cannot go back home to Senegal, go back home to Sierra Leone to help, but we need to work together. We know fully well that Nigerians have a lot of doctors in their space, and we know very well in Gabon, you understand that there are only 150 Gabonese that are doctors, and we know we have 1,000 Nigerian professors in virology alone. So there's nothing stopping Gabon government on say, let us reach out to these Nigerians that are about to retire, or this Nigerian professor. Let us just take just 60 or 30 of them. What will it take for us to give you accommodation? Come and help us build capacity. You know, that's the truth. Because if you keep on waiting for foreign aids to come in, rather than use that money to do other things that your people will need, you will be spending it on building modular labs, spending it on teaching people, spending it on training people. So diaspora has something that that the world, African continent will require. The critical mass and the critical knowledge. All we need is to gather ourselves together as a unit, divide ourselves into those thematic areas of interest: agriculture, security, education, leadership and mentoring, entrepreneur, technology. Once we're able to divide and say, okay, which of the African countries do we need to uplift now? And then when we're able to do that, we can now go as one block to meet our investors, or to meet the Western world. See, we have organized ourselves. These are areas we want you to prioritize. And in fairness to Biden administration, because I need to say it here, that the Biden administration already had been doing much of what they're doing now. The only change now is they want to do it with Africa. What it means now is that Biden is now encouraging community-driven idea. So if you have a community association in your village, take for instance in Kenya, in Nairobi, you have a community cooperative and you want to do a venture, you can apply. Yes, you can. You can, but of course, you need to now meet the eligibility for you to make things work. Biden already just released some money last year for Malawi to build the largest solar plant in Africa. The name of the company is, I remember, is Moti. The problem we have is African leaders, or the president of Malawi, may not want to make it a public thing, may not want people to know how much has been given, how much is there. But these are the things the Biden administration is telling them need to change. There are 4 objectives, and I want all our Africans to know. And that's what Mrs. Allison has said. If you want Africa to progress, you need to be open. Open means you need to be honest. Honesty must be your watchword. Say what you mean. Then you need to be inclusive. Another thing is you need to ensure democratic principles are laid out fine. Be free to allow people to voice concerns and sentiments. Give room for feedbacks on issues, because this project affects them. It doesn't affect you. You live in the White House. You live in a presidential place. You are being guarded 24 hours. You don't ask for water. You don't hawk for meals. So the people actually have the problem, not you. So to always think the project and the ideas must come from you is a fallacy. Let the people drive the idea. Another important thing that I think diaspora can do is young people. All our young entrepreneurs that are in Africa, that are in diaspora here, we need to work together with them. All our older elders need to sit down with them and say, what are the things you're working on? Can we take it back to Africa? Or can we help you? We have a little company on our own, but we don't have this idea. Can you help us to expand on it? Young people are not saying we want to take over everything from them. We're only saying that we are tired of seeing this narrative of being insulted. We are tired of seeing our brothers go into the Mediterranean Sea when they don't have a swimming lesson. Nobody has taught them how to swim. They've never swum in a swimming pool. Why do they think that they have a chance in the Mediterranean Sea? Because the hopelessness back home is unbearable. They prefer to take their destiny. And these things indict our leaders. And that's what Biden administration is saying. See, we're a better option for you. Now we realize that there's need to work with you, not work for you. So if we agree on a project and we see that there are going to be some changes in the project, we will hands off, unlike what it used to be before. And to address
But
it,
I think it's important, Daniel, though, to emphasize what you said from the beginning, that we're all here echoing. With 1 billion people on the continent, it is the responsibility of people in every one of the 55 countries to stand up and to say what's right for their communities to take on and to take forward. Because part of the challenge is that the political leadership is not reflecting the populations in the
exactly.
country at question. And as a result, you can have anywhere from the massive, almost 400 million people, across West Africa being stressed by the fact that their leadership is going through either a coup d'etat or some
Exactly.
kind of totalitarian regime or a dictatorship that's keeping and oppressing the people from being able to have the opportunities in their country. So it has to be a dual approach. I always say I work in politics, economics, and social development because it all must be done simultaneously, because people have to be empowered to know that even in their home villages and towns and cities, they have the power to take their lives in their own hands and to be able to make change so that things can happen to the extent that they have the ability to organize and to demand their local, provincial, county, state, you know, governments and federal governments, national governments, to push forward things that are going to make a difference in people's lives. That's really the transformation and the revolution and the amazing opportunity that we're in right now. That's why we see it, going across the whole globe, from Iran to fighting in Ukraine to all of the people across the globe saying, I want to be in charge of my own destiny. And
Yes.
in Africa, that's no exception. So, you know, for investment to feel welcome in any environment, we have to know that there is a welcoming political, economic, social community there that can be able to receive that investment and that can incorporate as many people in the activity to benefit. So the transparency, the accountability, and the chance for real leadership to step up and to claim that I'm going to do this for the whole country, not just for my elites or not just for my family, but for the whole country to benefit. And so that's the transition we're in right now. And so that's why all of us on this panel and every person listening can play a role in that, in being an example of how we can push projects and programs that are in favor of that. And I think, as you said, that's why the USA Africa Business Summit and the Leaders Summit was so powerful in the last week, because it was saying, unlike China, unlike Russia, we're going
Exactly.
to hold the governments accountable for
Exactly.
how they spend this money
Mm-hmm.
and how they organize themselves to be accountable to their population for their development, growth, and unfoldment and transformation to be a more powerful country on the global stage. So that's what the government of the USA wants to do. That's what this administration is pushing. And we're all partners in that, holding hands to push that forward. So thanks to the International Institute for Family Development to say we're right there at the table and we're going to be part of that change.
Absolutely. So thank you all. For those who are just tuning in, I see that we have more people tuning in to our live discussion. You are at the International Institute of Family Development program, The Africa We Deserve, Taking Power Over Our Lives. That is the full name of this video cast that happens. The Africa We Deserve, Taking Power Over Our Lives. And we have a campaign that we're running, and that campaign is to establish, create with Africans 1 million jobs across the continent by 2030. This is possible. This is now. This conversation that we are having is just reflections from individuals across the continent and the diaspora at large who have organized events during the Biden-Harris Africa Leaders Summit, and others who actually have attended side events during that time. We have with us again Abraham Diallo, Allison Johnson, Dr. Daniel, and we have Ms. Kamara here filling in for Alexandra Maloney. I do want to give a shout out to Dr. Fume Adwara. Dr. Fume is in Nigeria, and she couldn't join us today. There was issues with the connectivity. She is the CEO and founder of Mobile Health International. She is helping to cure cancer. And I put that as a full stop, right? I have to take my breath on that. I met her at an event I was invited to during the I just have tears in my eyes. I met so many wonderful people who have good hearts, who are doing amazing work. She received some large funding from the World Bank. She needs some additional funding to move through. But this work, personally, We can have as much money as we want in our bank accounts, but I tell you one thing that my grandmother has showed me every time she walked me to the cemetery is that we all go to the same place and you can't bring anything with you. And so in this work, how much money is the bottom line? Our focus here is to help the Biden-Harris administration, the State Department, African nations bring the dream home, to walk the talk. That's what we're doing here today, and we are all in. Just as President Biden said, he's all in for Africa. We are all in for the United States. We are all in for this opportunity that we have before us. We have another question on the table, and I do want to get some voices in here. Mr. Diallo, Ms. Kamar, to come to the forefront and talk about what are some accomplishments. A lot of people couldn't come, right? On the continent, they couldn't afford the ticket to come. They couldn't watch the live streams for a lot of events. So be the voice for those and talk about what are some of the accomplishments from your perspective that this event held.
I would say for one, it definitely set the tone for kind of the engagement that a different Western nations are taking towards Africa. Anything the U.S. does has to be big and bold, so it definitely sends a tone to the international stage, to China and the European Union, how they kind of do aid. Everyone has this narrative or idea of how most Western nations do aid is always like strings attached, but I think for this one, this U.S. summit last week kind of set the tone of of undueling partnership and leveraging the diaspora, which is some things that the other countries haven't really done yet. I went to the PAC event, and they also talked about including HBCUs, like when people other countries look at America, they see America as one homogenous. They don't see America as having all these variety of like the strata of Black Americans, Latinos, the melting pot that's here that really drives this country forward. So going back to what Miss Allison was saying about the social development aspect of it, all these three goes hand in hand. There's actually a principle in urban planning, the social, economic, and political. There's like a tripod that kind of that development sits on. So it shouldn't be innovative, but it is in a way. It's innovative because it's an approach that hasn't been taken by governments at that stage, and that's what I think this summit has the opportunity to do, to have people like me be included in the in the development process, because I'm yearning so hard to work on projects in Africa, but they don't really consider people like me. They always consider like really esteemed economists from European countries or at Harvard, who don't look like me. But now I speak the language fluently from where my parents are from. And, the Fulani people actually account for lots of the production in West Africa. President Buhari of Nigeria is Fulani. And that's home to one of the country's mega cities, which is cities that have over 10 million people. And, those are the drivers of GDP growth. So, being able to sit in those rooms and, put in my 2 cents to the economy is really it's phenomenal.
That's awesome. Someone teach me some African languages, please. I'm kind of stuck with English and Spanish.
Ndewo.
So it's hurting me. So if anyone wants to have mercy and pity on me, it's fine. Invite me to your home. I will happily come and you teach me language. That is great. I'm putting, we're having a lot of comments from the audience. I'm going to throw some in here. Mr. Kamara, as you come on, there's James here. He is saying, great to be here and nice to be here. I'm going to throw some questions in. So, Ms. Kamara, come on, talk about some accomplishments, and I'll throw another question in here.
Okay, great. And Ms. Green, I'm ready when you are.
Go right ahead.
Creole, just come over. I'm ready. I really liked what the summit represented. Regardless of anything that was said, it's the representation of, hey, we're taking out these 3 days and we're going to focus on Africa. That means a lot, maybe more than we'll even understand, right? It obviously it's not brick and mortar, but it shows that we are in thoughts of world leaders. I also liked the ability of African leaders to come into one place, and unite and talk about different topics. It really showed the seeds of African unity, which is really endearing for me. Now, how deep those seeds have been planted, I'm not really sure, but it's just kind of like with Afro beats or Amapiano, different African music. It's the representation, it's the thoughts, it's the media coverage, because representation is important, right? So I really liked that in terms of wins. And I really like that the summit broadcasted young people, even having this African and diaspora young leaders forum really giving us a forum to speak, a forum to engage with, for example, the Vice President Kamala Harris and hear what she has to say and allowing her to address us. It's empowering. It allows us to say, hey, these leaders, they see us and I see myself in her. Seeing my president, President Marabio speak, I'm like, wow, I'm in a room with him. I can be in a place where I can impact people as he does. So a lot of his representation, it shows capability, because a lot of the times as people, we can have this functional fixedness, right? Like we can limit ourselves. And we as Africans, as Black people, as anyone in the diaspora, we're capable of more than we even think. So that was really, really encouraging for me. Something else that keeps ringing true for me is the power of making use of the resources available to you. And you asked, what can the diaspora do, right?
Yes.
We all have resources available to us. We might not be billionaires and millionaires, but we have resources available to us. We have connections. Mm-hmm. So even being connected with one another. For example, you're talking about solar panels. I know a lady who works in Sierra Leone who would be interested in something like that. She has a foundation, Mariama Kamara. I'm not related to her, but we have the same last name. I can connect you with. So it's like having these conversations where we can connect with one another and say, hey, let's put one and one together and make two. That's really empowering. And just to wrap up, I met a guy from Sudan, and he started this program that's reached 5,000 kids.
Wow.
As of late, that feeds students in Sudan at lunchtime. And I was like, wow, that's great. And as somebody who's interested in strategy, I was like, what was your strategy? How do you do this? Mm-hmm. He said, in exchange for college students to live in their production building for free so that they can go to their classes for free, they help cook the meals. That is genius. Yes. And that is the
community.
Exactly.
That's creating community.
Exactly. And we are community-based people, right, on the African continent. So how can we leverage our community and the resources available to us to build infrastructure? Money is great, but how are we capitalizing that money to solve multiple problems? And, we were discussing social and economic factors, as Ms. Allison discussed. We need to emphasize intersectionality. And that's another thing I wanted to bring up in terms of companies, building infrastructure, things like that. So you're talking about building a manufacturing and production facility. We do have to be granular about what we're talking about. It could be a specific town, a specific community, and seeing, hey, is this a right fit? Just as Ms. Allison discussed, is this the right match? And it's possible, but being really granular is how we get things done. So that's something that I wanted to allude to, but it was really great just having the exchange of ideas through this summit. You mentioned that there are some questions. I don't want to.
Yeah, there's some folks here giving shout outs and saying right on and way to go. Dr. Paula Langford, she's like, culturally sensitive, attuned, relevant programming is key.
Exactly.
I trained in Senegal to address generational trauma in the brain. Viola, thank you for all that you do. Dr. Paula Langford, just for transparency, is a part of the network, the Africa We Deserve Business Network that we have with over 300 businesses involved. She is doing phenomenal and great work in Senegal, living there. Just fabulous stuff. We have another shout out here, Lady Patience. I was in Nigeria 6 months ago in Port Harcourt, helping to build a hospital, small village, and I'm going to tell you the story. Why do people cross water when they cannot swim? That was one of the things, saying crossing the Mediterranean. I cannot swim. In order to get to this village, I had to get on a boat. And on the boat, they had cups, silver tin cups. If you've ever been on a river, on a boat, you would know what I'm talking about, because these cups are made to bail out what? Water. Exactly. Right. But this is the best boats, great boats that had life vests. And I'm a big lady. And life vests didn't fit because things, just the way God made me, just don't fit in life vests. Okay. And so I'm sitting there, no life vest, going through. And so I asked the people on the boat, how deep is the water? Oh, 300 feet. We'll save you if you drown. But talk. I had conversation with baby Buddha, Jesus Christ, Mother of Mary, and everybody else on that boat ride as I moved. And why do we do that? Because I had hope in my heart. Other people leave because they have no hope. I have hope in my heart, and I draw upon my ancestors to say, protect and guide me. The blood that is within me, allow it to move so that the work that needs to be done, these hands, this brain, this mouth, these eyes, can help achieve it. And we have video and all the like of the video of the work that we're doing. And in Nigeria is a great country. I do always want to give a shout out, always want to go back. And Lady Patience, she's a part of our network as well. She has a housing development, agricultural farm that she is doing within her community. So it's really great and powerful work that's happening there. But she is not the individual that I went to see. But just to kind of give a story, Rashid Raji, PhD, MSW, LSWA. Wow. Impressive. We don't take children's development seriously. As a matter of policy, if we marginalize children in policies, 20 years later, the marginalized children will find themselves the same situation we have ourselves in now. What a comment. What a comment.
Let me just add one other accomplishment as you're reviewing the comments from the audience. I think one accomplishment we all can acknowledge is that for the first time since the creation of the United Nations, President Biden and Vice President Harris are going to promote that the African Union has a seat, yes, at the United Nations
Yes.
for the Security Council. That is a massive accomplishment after many decades since the United Nations was created after World War II. I think another major accomplishment for our summit, we have a real aspiring opportunity that President Biden and Vice President Harris are going to recommend that the African Union be able to become a member of the G20. I think that's another major accomplishment for the summits. As we know, the G20 are the richest nations on our planet Earth at this time, the most powerful, influential, economic, and financial powerhouses of our 200 countries in this world. So I think having the African Union voice there will be critical. And finally, I think that ultimately they will also be promoting the African Union having a guest spot at the G7. I think that's another accomplishment that will eventually get onto the table for this Summit 2022. And all those will elevate the voice of the 55 countries of Africa and the overall power of the African Union to have a place and a voice at the table with the most powerful economic, financial, nations on this planet Earth. So I think those are accomplishments as well.
Another accomplishment, sorry,
Mhm.
just to add with what Miss Allison is saying, is that America is also showing an operationable platform or framework for which you can also progress. Because if you follow all what has been going on, they use the whole government approach in addressing everything that they have given to you as a financial package, from the State Department to the Department of Energy to the Department of Commerce to the US Trade and Development Department to civil society organization. They are engaging everyone. Then there's a new term that many people are not listening. It's all written there, but because many of our African people, when they come, these technical issues are the things they do not want to, because it's about transparency, system diversity, or suppliers diversity. Supplier diversity is a concept that shows that government, small and medium business entrepreneurs, women, cooperative society, and companies can all form a loop together. In the United States, they discovered that anytime there's going to be a contract going to be used in Maryland, say for Maryland, and in Baltimore, and there are minority groups in that society where that stuff will be benefited. The federal law in the United States says that you should sublet some component of that bulk sum of contract to it. It's called the supplier diversity. And it is what this summit is also preaching. It is written in text that we are encouraging a situation where contracts and anything that will be given to African country will also be decentralized, such that some part of the community people will have, a chunk of whatever that grant is. So concepts that have been put into this summit are things that I think should be highlighted for those of us that are academic. But the key thing that I think we should realize is this, that the US government wants to go technology. They are embracing technology to the fullest. Every of the initiative, Power Africa, Prosper Africa, Feed the Nation initiatives, GPII. All these are initiatives already running before now, but they now want Africans to be with it together. They're not forcing it on you now. They want to work with you and expand, and money are all in there. The point to be made is that all young people now should take technology seriously. Technology is the way out of our problems for now. We already need to expand on our capacity, but we need to ensure that we are training enough people to embrace technology. Cybersecurity, cyber analysts will be the future. I spoke with the head of LinkedIn, the head of LinkedIn's economic and global labor market stuff. He said that 25% of all the skills that you're going to see in the next 30 years will all be new for every career. So it will be very unhealthy for you not to continue to reskill, upskill your stuff, and technology will be central to all of it. Even in medicine, we are doing robotic surgery. You are in US, you are operating on somebody in South Africa. So it's not going to be new, it's going to apply to everything. So if you remain a doctor forever and you do not want to bring in technology into your stuff, you're just fooling yourself. You will not be able to deliver universal health coverage, quality health coverage services for people. And that's why I truly believe that this is very important. Another achievement is that new things are coming into the continent. I know in Syria alone that there's a hydroelectric plant being built. It's supposed to take off by 2028. It's going to provide 27 megawatts of what it means is it's going to provide light for at least 1 year non-stop for the small Syria alone that it is, compared to Nigeria that has 200 million space. In Zambia alone, they're already doing what they call the battery energy storage. What it means is that electric cars now can even start working in Zambia, because batteries are some of the challenges, battery storage are some of the challenges of the electric car. And if Zambia's plant comes up, that will change. And then for women, there's the AWI. The AWI is the Accelerating Women Empowerment Program. It's an initiative that has over 100 million now. It is targeting women that are in technology. So I will not advise any of my townsmen, and women to start to look for professional courses. No, I will tell them it's cybersecurity. You understand? Let my entire village, of over 100,000 people be providing cybersecurity for the entire of West Africa. You will always have stuff. So this summit only has shown young people that there is actually an operational manual for progress, and that African leaders don't have any excuse, and that the option of looking for fakes, option of looking for people that will give you contract. I'll give you an example. So in Nigeria,
We have 5 minutes left.
the Nigerians in Nigeria, the Chinese gave us a contract to do a railway. And my transport official here knows, my brother knows here, that is railway what should be? People are moving away to smarter, faster, supersonic kind of transportation. They now gave them a clause in the contract not to reveal the content of the contract. So you give Nigeria billions of dollars, billions in loan, they can't pay back, and nothing happened. What happened? The railway track did not have CCTV camera. The railway track, people got kidnapped on that railway track. They could not even identify. The rail track was just dancing like this, and everything just derailed. The point to be made is this: US has pitched an idea. There's a pathway for progress: honesty, transparency, openness with your people, true intentions to develop your people, leave your personal things and focus on the people. And that for me is the gain from the summit. Thank you.
We have 5 minutes left, and I just wanted to take this time to say thank you to all of our audience members and to our panelists. We're going to put up some more of comments here, but Habib Bangura had put this question in, and I left this question up because it was important. In that question, you guys, Allison and Dr. Daniel, Ms. Kamara, Mr. Jallo, really answered his question, from my opinion. His statement was, I hear globalization, inclusion, youth empowerment, and loans. That's what he's hearing as the theme topics here. How is the summit different from, the last summits about Africa leading back to the Berlin conference? He says, it's a bit of tongue in cheek, but I asked from a place of sincere curiosity. And I think you guys have really done a great job at really outlining a lot of the accomplishments. Mr. Diallo, you are in Washington, D.C. You are in a place where when you walk across the street, you walk on a sign that says Black Lives Matter. One of the things that the International Institute is seeing as a major accomplishment of the Biden-Harris Africa Summit. It is a statement to say Black lives does matter. And their best way in an international platform to bring 49 leaders together from the continent to do work. We have another comment here from Allison Claire Moses. People must be educated to ask for accountability for their leaders, but things begin on the local level, emphasizing local here for projects to get done. Relationships must be built via communication with understanding of what will work, beginning at the local level with village elders for development opportunities. Couldn't be more right. She has another thought here with the involvement of the diaspora with investment and intergenerational cooperation and capital is necessary. Private sector involvement is critical. Education can be turned on its head for the commitments of Generation Z and those like Mr. Giallo there. We have, who else do we have here?
Yes, I want to thank my friend Allison Moses for joining us and bringing up those very critical points. It is going to start at the local level, and each of us can play a role from all the examples that we've discussed today. And the difference between this summit, as Viola looks for the next comments, unlike 2014, where I attended, as well as 2022, the difference here is that there is a commitment to bring some real capital to the table, which didn't happen in 2014. So, get your projects ready, get your programs on point, and hold your leadership accountable to follow through to the end. because there's some real opportunity here for the next decade if we're ready to, seize the moment and locally organize, because that's where the money goes. It goes at the community level. You've got to have the infrastructure in place to put the projects that are desired in work.
We have a comment here from Muhammad Jallo. African immigrant laws are
Miss
a
Green.
hoax.
Sorry, Ms. Ginn, let me add to what she's saying.
Okay, do
You
that.
asked a question about the Berlin conference.
Yes.
So now the difference between this summit and the Berlin conference, like you said, Habib, is in the Berlin conference, Africans were not brought on board. They were deciding for you. They were sharing the African continent into plantations. You were not there. The difference between this summit and now is that everybody now has been equalized. COVID has humbled people. Existing systems that used to have very strong stuff failed and collapsed, from Italy to the US to everything. And it is now time for every other person to build back better. In building back better now, we know now that health security that happens in China, in Nigeria, in Timbuktu, in stuff can affect America. And that's why everybody needs to come on board. What is different now is this: for the first time, African diasporans have been recognized as stakeholders now to invest in, to plan with. So once you walk in and you say you're an African diaspora, you want to work in Ghana, you want to do this, the door is open for you. So what is different is that young people now are tired. African young men and women are tired. They just have had enough. They've seen social media come up. They've seen what the world should be, and then they're working. And with what Miss Allison has said, and that's the truth, we must start to work together. It's not about blaming people. It's about you yourself as a young man. What are you doing in that locality? And like what one of our commentators has said, all problems start local. So to deceive yourself that you want to be doing global, national, subnational, no. Address issue on the local before they now spring forth to spread through the nation. Think global, but peculiarize or act local. Thank you.
Absolutely. So Muhammad Jalal has a question here, a comment here. I'm going to take that on and then give up to the last question, the last comment that we have here, and then round out our conversation with our final question. African immigration laws are hawks and unreal. There is no, real trade agreement. What is discussed during the summit regarding the immigration laws? I'm going to just say this. Yes, you're right. Immigration laws are hard. But I think the real focus that we have with us right now, as many people are trying to leave the continent, we have experienced the brain drain for a very, very long time. I think the opportunity that we have before us is the movement of free people across the continent of Africa. It is more important as a company coming in the continent, as a diaspora myself, that when I'm on the ground, that I'm able, and you on the ground as continental Africans can move from Senegal to Gambia, from Gambia to Guinea-Conakry, to Benin, to Algeria, that you're able to move without needing a visa to move through. That is the work of undoing the impact of the Berlin Conference, but more importantly, that is the work to bring alive the African Free Continental Trade Agreement, right? So it's not just the moving of products that you want to be able to figure out freight and move, but people as human resources to be able to move them. That is the work of now, not having another visa to come to the Western world. The work is to change the continent so that the continent can be free, dare I say, sovereign. Last question that we have here that I'm going to put up from the chat, and then we have our final question that we'll roll out that I'll ask. I have called earlier for an appraisal between the Obama-era U.S.-Africa summit and the summit that President Biden and VP, as the VP back then, had. My simple query is that as a benchmark appraisal should be made so we know what's been previously done, were promises kept, what's left undone, the impact analysis, Sub-regional benchmarks to track progress can equally be reviewed from existing country templates that's been contextualized and mainstreamed via the AUDA NetPad, the African Union Development Association NetPad. Really hard for acronyms for people who don't know acronyms. Tracking and benchmarking Africa's wins and challenges. So yes, thumbs up. James, join us. That's all I can say. James, welcome and join us. I'm on LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn. Hit me up. We have a group, a working group. You want to be a part of that working group and you have something to bring to the table, let's do that. I'm looking forward to seeing you in my DMs very shortly, James. Here, we want to have our final question. And our final question is, we also hear all the time about what's wrong with Africa. You know, I grew up hearing you have to finish all the food off your plate. I went to Catholic school with nuns because there's starving children in Ethiopia. There's starving children. And I was always sent to the principal's office because I grew up in a place called Roxbury, Massachusetts. And I would say that, but there's starving people right around the corner, right? And those starving people, I grew up with people who didn't look like me all the time. And those people I was referring to were poor people. And sometimes those poor people didn't want to be reminded that they had a lot more in common with those people that they were saying were over there than the power elites that they wanted to be associated with. And I was always in Sister Dorothy's office. And that tells you how much I was in trouble because I'm naming the nun that disciplined me all the time. And so we hear all the time what's wrong with Africa. One sentence, one short, brief sentence. What's right with Africa? So we'll start off here with Ms. Kamara. What's right with Africa?
We are innovative and resilient. That's my one sentence.
We are. Mr. Diallo, what's right with Africa?
What is right with Africa is its strong ability to create to right the wrongs.
Dr. Daniel, what's right with Africa?
We love our culture, we love our people, we love our ways of life, and we are a ground for blessings to mankind.
Yes. Allison, tell me, what's right with Africa, my sister?
The African continent is the cradle of humankind, and it now will be a platform to witness inclusive development, true, blessed political, economic, and social development for all people, and most hopefully, a place that is a witness of how the world can work for everyone and everything without exception. May it be so.
May it be so, Ashe.
I want to.
Ashe, may it be so.
May it be so. So, what's right with Africa is that you are right with Africa, and our listening audience is right with Africa. Those who come from the continent, those who are far from the continent, and those who love the continent. I want to thank your parents, your ancestors, and you for deciding to be born, to come onto this journey, to engage with the International Institute, to be here in community and conversation. Thank you for being right. What's right with Africa? For our listening audience, we have the opportunity here to stay connected, to stay engaged. The International Institute has several platforms for you to engage with on social media via Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and whatever else our social media person has, like all the stuff like you're asking me. I don't know. There's lots of platforms that we have, and find us. If you're watching via LinkedIn, hit us up. If you are willing to engage with us as a group and be a part of community, lend your expertise and dive in. Let's do this. Let's make the reality real. For those of our panelists, stay in studio. We're going to close out. Thank you, everybody. Please like and subscribe on our YouTube channel. Share this conversation, and we appreciate you. Thank you very much. Until next time.